But anytime that we enact or change or update public policy, things that affect a public entity, I just want to be very clear on who comes forward to represent their group's opinions on matters. And very similar, I spoke out a while back when we were talking about changing some of the liquor-based laws in the city and policies. When the Tavern League, for example, referenced something or proposed something, we have to look at it very objectively. When other interest groups or third parties get involved in this political process, I want to make sure that the council's fully aware of that involvement before we make these decisions. So again, it's not that I'm against this, I just want to understand more about this group. So with that, if Ms. Jeffries or the mayor, if you could explain a little more, I'd appreciate it.
Sure, I'll touch on it briefly and then turn things over to Chief of Staff Jeffries, who's done a lot of work in this area. But the Human Rights Campaign, as Director Fuld said, is a nonprofit nationwide organization that works on pro-LGBTQ issues, and they've been doing this Municipal Equality Index for quite some time. Green Bay historically has not ranked very high, and I believe, I think Chief of Staff Jeffries believes that we should have a city that is open and welcoming and inclusive of all members of our community here. And so we've worked with them collaboratively to improve that score and to make it clear that Green Bay as an entity, as an employer, is open and inclusive, and as a community is similarly situated. So Chief of Staff Jeffries.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Alder. Thank you, Mr. Faulds. The Human Rights Campaign has been doing this work for quite some time, and their Municipal Equality Index is something that people who are looking to move into our community, they look at this. I will say, though, what I think I hear you saying, Alder, is that you want to be concerned, welcoming, but also somewhat cautious about groups that solicit us for to make changes to our public entity here, and I hear your concern. And so what the mayor's office and the HR department and other departments in the city, we take the good work of the Human Rights Campaign as a launch pad for other efforts to ensure that we are being open and welcoming to all different groups, diversity in the broadest sense possible. So not just people who are LGBTQ, who have different gender identities, but also people who come from different countries, who live in our community now, people who are younger, people who are older, people who have different abilities. So we want to take this, I think that the Human Rights Campaign has done a lot of good work, and we're taking this as a launch pad to make sure that our city is the city that we all live in, that it reflects the community. You're welcome.
Thank you, Alder. Alder from
and I
the
can
8th.
certainly provide any, excuse me, I'm sorry, Mayor. I can certainly provide information to you. There are a number of indices at the Human Rights Campaign. What do our policies say? What commissions do we have? What groups do we have that inform the mayor, that inform other departments? So there are many parameters, and I'd be happy to provide those to you. You're welcome.
Thank you. Alder from the 8th.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too had, never heard of the Human Rights Campaign. I just brought it up right now on the web, and so I'm just curious. Did the Human Rights Campaign, did we change our policies to really follow state and federal law, or did we change it to increase their rating for our city?
I think
what was
Director
the main
Fultz,
driver there?
Director Fultz commented on that, but maybe reiterate.
Yeah, I can just tell you that, I think what Chief of Staff Jeffries said is that HRC was a launching pad to put this on our radar, but I think if they didn't come up and talk to us, we still would have made these changes to be consistent with the laws and to be welcoming and inclusive for all employees and members of the community.
Okay, because I know Ms. Jeffries had stated that the Municipal Rating Index, people moving into our community look at that rating index. Well, I've never heard of it, and I doubt if 99.9% of the people moving to Green Bay heard of it. So that's a poor reason to change something, because maybe a small amount of people are looking at some index. But have we had other nonprofit groups approach us about our fair employment policies in the past or currently?
I have not been approached in the past 2 years.
Did the Human Rights Campaign ask for any other changes or additions that we turned down or are still perhaps looking at?
So the Human Rights Campaign essentially gives parameters, and they don't really ask for changes. They say, here are the other cities in your state, other cities that are like you that have gotten this particular score. Here are the parameters by which we judge these cities, and it's up to you as to make changes that you feel are appropriate and necessary. There are some things that the Human Rights Campaign does in other states that we are prohibited from doing in the state of Wisconsin, for instance, like with domestic partner benefits.
Completely went around my question, but my question was, did the Human Rights Campaign ask for any changes or additions that we turned down or that we are still entertaining?
I think Chief of Staff Jeffries said that's not really how they operate. They don't make demands or asks. Yeah, I mean, so I think there are a number of different areas. I mean, you can look up the scorecard. It's publicly available, so you can get a sense for what. Right, but you can get a sense for what categories they're looking at.
Nonprofit group now come forward and ask for changes to improve their index? We have to be careful with that. Thanks.
Very good. Alder from the 7th.
Yeah, I almost raised a point of order. Really, this doesn't matter. Any group can come, or any individual can come forward and make suggestions, and we should be looking at the value of the suggestion, not who it came from. It's got nothing to do with anything. This is entirely out of order. If a convicted felon comes before us, we should be, hey, I've got the floor.
Alders.
If a convicted felon came before us, we should not be looking at that as a convicted felon, but at what he's presenting, and if it has valid or not, and just have discussion from there. Whether he's a convicted felon or not should not be part of our discussion. These organizations, what they are, what they represent, whatever, is completely immaterial. Any group, any person can come forward to this city, to this body, and make suggestions or whatever. Offer policies, say whatever they want. Then we should be listening to every one of them and taking them, what they say at face value as, do we value this? Do we think it's a good idea? Yes, no, that's the discussion, that's the debate. So if there's anything within the policy here that's a problem, that's what we should be discussing, not the stuff that's completely out of order.
Alder from the 9th.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I certainly appreciate the points that Alder Burnett has brought up, just kind of understanding maybe the background on some of these things. And I think at the end of the day, if what we're trying to do is make some type of change, certainly there's more systemic and cultural policies that are going to have to address that. I really, looking at the verbiage change that was here, I mean, in an obscure policy manual that will sit on a shelf, I don't think anyone's ever going to see this. I really don't. We're in compliance with the change. That's fine. If you know, some constituents are served by it, I'm good with that. And it doesn't really change the context of anything that the city's doing. If the mayor wants to, you know, kind of change the culture of the city with respect to how we address that, I would expect to see some larger policies proposed that would help do that. In the meantime, I think what we've got before us is really business as usual.